Greetings, everybody, and welcome. I am your host, Shakti Malan, and very delighted to have with me in this conversation today, Dan Brulé, who is an internationally known breathwork master. I'm going to tell you more about him in a moment, but just want to warmly welcome you, Dan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure, Shakti. Thank you.
So a bit more about Dan. Dan is a world-renowned pioneer in the field of breathwork and is a leader in the worldwide spiritual breathing movement. He's an adept in prana yoga, the Hindu science of breath, in qigong, or Chinese medical breathing exercises. He's taught more than 100,000 people in over 45 countries to use the breath as a tool for health, growth, and change in spirit, mind, and body. He's the author of Shut Up and Breathe, How to Clear Your Head, Calm Your Nerves, and Settle Your Stomach Anywhere, Anytime, no matter what. And I think the title of that book says a lot about Dan, because he is in fact not only a true master in the science of breath, but also such a delicious, can I say, like a student of the enjoyment of life. And whenever I've had the privilege or the opportunity to either co-teach with Dan or to be his student, I've just felt this palpable sense of such a deep enjoyment of the moment, of being in the body, of being together, and also the quality of stillness and presence underneath the rhythm of the breath, which is always Dan's focus, which just takes me into such fine states of bliss. So I am very delighted to have Dan in this summit, because I think that the title, The SoulMate Within, really points to this quality also of where we're really wanting to come back to ourselves and find that love affair inside ourselves, and then also to bring that into relationship. So Dan's topic that he's chosen is How the Breath Awakens Sacred Relationship. So Dan, I'm first of all, just again, thank you for all the awesomeness of your teaching, and I wonder if we can start off with you just saying a bit by what you mean by this title, How the Breath Awakens Sacred Relationship. What is sacred relationship for you here? Are you talking about inner relationship, outer relationship, and what does the breath do to awaken this relationship?
Well, speaking of titles, my book, Shut Up and Breathe, it could have been called Why I'm Not a Therapist, because when people get into their stories and they're whining, I just want to just shut up and breathe. It's really that simple. So, but you suddenly reminded me of a very early teacher, Morihei Ueshiba, who's the father of Aikido. And Aikido, I don't know if people know, in Japanese, the word means the art of peace. And so he says, one of my early breathing teachers, he says, all the principles of heaven and earth are living inside you. Life itself is the truth, and this will never change. Everything in heaven and earth breathes. Breath is a thread that ties creation together. When the myriad variations in breath can be sensed, the individual techniques of the art of peace, or Aikido, are born. So that says a lot. That says a lot about how we can use the breath to awaken a sacred relationship. And as this, what's the other expression? As above, so below, as within, so without. He says another thing. He says, now and again, it's necessary to seclude you among the deep mountains and hidden valleys to restore your link to the source of life. And when you do, breathe in and let yourself soar to the ends of the universe. Breathe out and bring the cosmos back inside. Next, breathe up all the richness and vibrancy of the earth. And finally, blend the breath of heaven and the breath of earth with that of your own, becoming the breath of life itself. So he sounds like a Tantra teacher, doesn't he?
He does. In fact, I think Aikido is an incredibly sensual sport. I find it deeply delicious.
Yeah.
The way you talk about that understanding of the breath rather than in Aikido, I totally see the connection, yeah.
And we live, and mountains are sacred, and oceans are sacred. And that's the last little quote that I'll give you from him, because he's been on my mind today, is he says, consider the ebb and flow of the tide. When waves come to strike the shore, they crest and fall, creating a sound. Your breath should follow the same pattern, absorbing the entire universe into your belly with each inhalation. Know that we all have access to 4 treasures: the energy of the sun and moon, the breath of heaven and the breath of the earth, and the ebb and flow of the tide. So this life is a sacred relationship, and we are in a sacred relationship. And every breath is a chance to experience that sacred relationship. And so that's the awareness of breathing awakens in us the awareness of something sacred. And the more you become quiet and still, and the more totally you become absorbed in the act of breathing, the more the sacredness of everything comes alive in us. So it's a very direct, very short cut, a short path to what all the great teachers and all the great masters are trying to point to in their own way. And we all have access to that through something right under our nose. And that's how it should be. It should be simple and basic and obvious. And maybe we make the whole thing too complicated, and breathing brings it all back home and all back down to earth and all right back into us where it starts. So breathing is, for me, it's that way. It's a way to have something that maybe some people have an intellectual understanding of, but to have it actually come alive in ourselves, to have a biological experience of divinity, a physical experience of the substance of the universe. I left Los Cabos. I was down in Mexico on my farm for almost 2 months. And before I left, I stood under the stars and just started to breathe. And in a very short time, I was absorbed into this light that's pouring down from all of the stars and bathing us. And we're part of that. Who we are and what we're made of is the same as the stars and what they're radiating. And when you wake up to that and your borders dissolve, and it's like coming home, and you feel you live in an ocean, and the ocean supports you, and everywhere you turn, there's love. And I think we need to have this experience. So it's not just a philosophy; it's a cellular experience, a biological experience of our essence, of our cosmic nature. So for me, and I think, that's the path. Breath is a path to having all this come alive in us.
Beautiful, Dan. And, when you say that beautiful image of you standing under the stars on your farm in Mexico and the light pouring down you said something like the borders melted, and what that evokes for me is this possibility that when relationship is no longer like, okay, there's the stars and there's me and we're in relationship, like there's some other thing and there's me, but now there's actually just like this mutual outpouring into each other. And I want to ask you if in your experience that the breath facilitates that experience of almost like breathing each other, or the melting of the boundaries between what we could have a relationship with and us.
It's exactly that. It's exactly that. And I've been a lover of Sai Baba for many years. One of my early mentors, Milton Young, was a devotee of Sai Baba, and he turned me on to Sai Baba in the early 70s and mid 70s. And at the time, it was my first introduction to a real Eastern, spiritual guru kind of personality character. And I wrote a long letter to Sai Baba, my whole life story and all my problems and all my questions and all my dreams. But I got an answer back from Sai Baba, and it was very, very simple. He said, first you're in the light, then the light is in you, and then you and the light are one. And that's exactly the progress on the path. We're in the light, and then we wake up and realize, wait, the light is in me. And then finally we realize there is no difference. I am the light. There's a dissolving of egoic boundaries. There's a dissolving of personal history. There's a dissolving of physical limitations, and we suddenly or gradually find ourselves absorbed in something outrageously amazing and beautiful and immense, and we can't wrap our minds around it. It's this infinite space, and all we can do is hopefully let go enough of our limited perception so that we can to look through the eyes of the universe, which are everywhere in everyone. You hug a tree, and if you hug the tree long enough, pretty soon you feel like you are the tree, that the tree is hugging you, and then you find that you and the tree are one, and you and the tree are part of something even bigger, and it just goes on forever. And it's a great solution to a lot of our suffering, is to just wake up to this reality in a way.
So Dan, when you speak so poetically about this movement of into oneness, I've experienced this in breathing sessions with you, like very powerfully. Such a deep realization of that intense aliveness and sense of oneness with everything. But I'm also considering listeners who, maybe haven't done this haven't had this experience, and now they, so the question coming from that perspective would be, okay, so, I go through my day every day and I breathe all the time. Obviously I'm doing that, otherwise I would be dead. But I'm not having these experiences you're talking about. Like, what do you mean? Like, the breath makes you feel one with the stars. Like, how, can you say more from maybe the ordinary perception we have of breath to what is actually possible in the breath in the way that you work with it?
Yeah, I have a friend now. Recently, I've been communicating with someone by the name of Barnett Bain, a really beautiful man, a Hollywood producer, filmmaker, director, screenwriter. And he has a book called The Book of Doing and Being. And he points out something really interesting. He points out that 98% of 3-year-old children test as creative geniuses. And 2% of college-age people test as geniuses. So what happens to our natural creativity? And so his book is about reawakening this creativity, and he's got a great hit on how it happens. If we experience intense aliveness, too much aliveness in the body, we shuttle out of the body. We shift up into the head. We try to have a virtual or conceptual relationship with the experience instead of a felt relationship. And creativity it comes from beyond, and it's born. It comes through the body. It's a feeling. It's emotional, and the only way to get back in and connect to that creative potential is to breathe our way back into our body. And so it's a matter of perspective. The average person who when you were a tiny child, an infant, you develop strategies to cope with the intensity of aliveness, especially if it's distressing aliveness, but even outrageously enjoyable aliveness. If it's too intense, we choke up, we shut down, we tense up, we try to avoid, our system tries to avoid the intensity. And so it's a matter of letting go of limited perception. It's a matter of just becoming still and becoming soft, and things open to us. If we try to focus and think about it, we're just doing head trips and we contract. And so for the average person who hasn't had these experiences, the idea, the first step is to relax, to soften, to open, and to come into your body in a very real, felt way, moment to moment. And you will begin to perceive these things. You will begin to have these experiences because they're natural. We're blocking them because of our mode of thinking and because of the tensions and stresses and our limited kind of perception. We've been trained since childhood to, A equals B and B equals C, therefore A equals C, which is very great and very useful, but it's only one way of relating to reality. There are other ways to relate, and breathing helps us to open up our senses and open up our perceptual doors, and the universe comes flooding in. It's not something we do. We make ourselves available. We stop doing certain things, and then we have these awakenings, and we have these insights, and we have this wider view. It just comes naturally.
Beautiful. So how would you say to somebody who's new to breathwork, how do you get started if you wanted to really, because I'm sure by now, I'm just like feeling the thrill of what's possible with the breath. If somebody hasn't done anything like this before, where would they start?
I would start by, have people are listening. You put your hands on your collarbones, put both of hands, one hand on each of your collarbones, and you're going to breathe through your mouth in a big ah shape. So you're going to inhale this. It's almost like a startle response. This is like, you inhale with the ah up under the collarbones in a big, deep breath, a real big, deep breath, inhaling in an ah shape up under your collarbones. And you do that 5 times. Big, deep breaths. And the feelings and sensations, some people, they only have to do that breath 5 times. They begin to get dizzy. They start to have weird feelings. And what's happening is you're awakening the very same feelings and sensations that caused you to abandon ship when you were an infant. So then the game is to take 5 of those breaths, and then 10 of those breaths, and then 20 of those breaths. And if it gets too scary and if too much starts to happen, then you just let the breath come and go by itself, and you ground yourself. Well, I'm sitting in a room right now. I look around, I see fan on the ceiling, a brass doorknob, a gray carpet. This will settle and soothe my cognitive mind. Light switch on the wall, brown table, leather chair. And now that will soothe my lizard brain. It will satisfy my cognitive mind, but I'm continuing to breathe as I do. And so you use this active breathing to activate these feelings and sensations, and the feelings and sensations that you feel are the very feelings and sensations you try to avoid as a child, as an infant, and you just practice breathing and relaxing with them until you can breathe like this without activating all this stuff. And in the process, you will be opening your senses and your physiology and your mind and emotional body to something bigger. And it is more intense. It's the universe, for God's sake. Of course it's intense. It's life. It's, it's existence. It's powerful. And we just got to gently train our system to be comfortable with that intensity, and don't run away from those feelings. Don't force yourself through them, but lean into them and and open to them and relax into them and breathe into them, and your senses will open.
You mentioned that in your write-up for the event, just this tendency we have as human beings to, when we experience an intensity, even an intensity of aliveness, that we kind of don't want it. We push it away, or we avoid it. And of course, that's something that also happens in lovemaking and in intimate relationship, is that this intense aliveness comes up, and then we start to kind of like unconsciously actually throw it off by, maybe ejaculating or getting distracted, or not even really noticing that what we're experiencing is an intense aliveness. And so you mentioned that that really, while working with the breath, one can heal this fear of being that alive.
Yeah, because we were meant to purr like cats. And when you breathe and relax, you begin to contact this vibrating, tingling, electrical experience. And at first it's frightening. And we have to learn how to relax into it. We're afraid of our own power. We're afraid of our own vastness. And so we have to be gentle with our system and gradually get comfortable. And soon we are purring like cats. In a few breaths, and you feel this delicious vibrating sensation, and the vibrations are in us as well as around us. And then we don't have to try to have this experience of oneness. We wake up in it. And anyone who's done lovemaking, and anyone who's, loves a child or holds their beloved in their arms, they have moments where they disappear. We disappear. And for a while we're gone. And then we come back, and, we can't talk about where we were, but that you kind of disappeared in love for a time. And so it takes practice to be conscious when the egoic kind of mind disappears, and to maintain some awareness. Right now, when the ego mind shuts off, we lose all capacity to be conscious. So it takes practice. Meditation is a good practice. And so then you maintain a thread of awareness when the egoic mind shuts off, and you're able to actually be conscious in those times where you seem to disappear. And you can wake up in a different perception. And I think people have moments of it. We all have moments of it. Sunsets, a beautiful sunset, a wonderful piece of music, getting lost in a movie, getting lost in lovemakings. People are experiencing these endless kind of borderless experiences. However, they're not bringing with them their logical, rational mind. So when they come back, there's no information about it. And so they don't know anything happened. And I think that's the practice of breathing. We take the breath with us into the feelings. We take the breath with us into our emotions. And then we have a bridge. So when we come back, we come back with information. And gradually our perceptions expand.
So is there, when you talk about the breath there as being the bridge of consciousness, is there then a way of breathing that where even though the breath is kind of taking over, or at least that's my experience when one continues to breathe that deeply and fully in deep relaxation, that the breath almost like invites consciousness to be present, even when we're going into states through the breathing that are maybe unfamiliar to the usual mind, or maybe similar to the states of oneness, where maybe at other moments we would completely blank out and forget about it. Like what's the connection between the breath and that thread of consciousness that assists us in integrating the experience back into our conscious reality?
Yeah, two things. One is that when we practice conscious breathing, at some point, who we thought was doing the breathing takes a back seat, and something begins to breathe us. It's like we we begin to be breathed by the breath itself. And that's frightening to the ego, because it's like losing control. Wait a minute, I'm not breathing. Something's breathing me. Uh-oh, who is it? Where's it coming from? And so we jam up, we shut down, and we lose. We were so close to entering something beautiful, but the egoic fear of losing control comes in, and we start to control the breathing again, right? So that people encounter that, and it takes a few times of leaning into it and practicing it, so you can get comfortable with letting go of the breath and allowing the breath to begin to breathe you. And it's a magnificent experience. It's sometimes frightening to the ego at first, but then if you surrender, it turns out to be something absolutely beautiful. And the other thing is, on the other side is the relaxation part. If you keep relaxing and keep relaxing and keep relaxing, at some point you're going to reach a point beyond which you cannot relax. It's like the system itself is afraid to let go totally, because the worst things happen to us when we were totally vulnerable. And so as you approach this doorway and you get to this point where you're going to let go more than you ever let go, all the defenses come up and they cut us off from the very perceptions that we're trying to open in us. So if you look at the average person, the most relaxed moments of their day, literally, we're sleeping. People are fast asleep when they are most relaxed. And it's almost as if nature has to make us get out of the way, go unconscious, so this deep relaxation can come in and the body can rejuvenate and renew itself. As long as our busy mental stuff is awake, the body can't really let go. So we go unconscious and the body goes, finally some peace. And it goes to that relaxed place, but we're sleeping and we're not conscious of it. So the first time a person is wide awake and totally relaxed, it's a peak religious experience, because they've never been completely relaxed and wide awake at the same time. When they're awake, they lose relaxation. When they relax completely, they go unconscious. So we have to get through these subtle barriers, let's say, of the ability to relax and the ability to stay conscious. It's very hard to stay conscious when everything comes up at once. The tendency is to try to escape, and it takes practice to be with it as it is and trust it and relax in the face of it. I just worked with a group of Navy SEAL Commander Mark Devine and his mastermind group. And he has a beautiful, we have this image of the Navy SEAls and muscling through and forcing through. And he goes, you don't have to force ahead, but you got to lean into your fears. I love that metaphor, leaning into your fears, leaning into your discomfort, not pushing yourself through, but also not pulling away, leaning into the fear, leaning into the discomfort. I think that's a beautiful way. And when you breathe, you're going to bring up all the stuff that you need to learn how to lean into if you're going to grow and move to the next higher level. So you can't break through it. You can't muscle your way through, and it's not an egoic struggle. So it's a tricky dance in a way, and it is a dance, right? This life is a dance. Breathing is a dance. And you and I are dancing right now.
And so we are, and our breaths are creating the sound that's making all of this happen.
Yeah.
So Dan, any advice on shortcuts or best practices that you can share with the listeners?
Yeah, everyone is carrying physical tension in their body, and they're carrying it all the time, and so it doesn't even register as physical tension. So we need to practice relaxation. We need to practice relaxation. We need to practice relaxation. And and no matter how relaxed you are, you can always relax more. And the way to do that is to use the breath, to use the juiciest, most delicious sigh of relief that you can muster up, a kind of sigh of relief that says, It's like everything is letting go. It's like coming home. It's like melting. It's like ecstatic, joyful pleasure. Breathe in that way, one breath at a time, making the exhales as a dramatic, luxurious sigh of relief as possible, and ride that exhale into more relaxation. And then when you breathe in, don't disturb the relaxation. Breathe in and then relax again with a sigh of relief even more. And then don't disturb, because what happens is people relax, but then they use tension on the next inhale, so they create tension. Then when they relax again, all that they relax is the tension that they just created, and the relaxation is not going deeper. So it's kind of an art to be able to relax on the exhale, give yourself a big, luxurious sigh of relief. You let your jaw go, you let your neck go, you let your shoulders go. You might lay on the floor and feel yourself melting like ice cream in the sun. And then you breathe into that puddle, that soft body, and you relax even more, one breath at a time. And develop that ability to let go and to relax more than usual, and use the breath to do it. And then choose situations where it's testing you, it's difficult, maybe a stressful situation, a difficult situation, and practice relaxing in that situation more than you normally would. Make it a practice. Go, oh, here's a difficult conversation, or here's a difficult situation. And instead of doing what you usually do, start taking big, luxurious sighs of relief right in the face of it, right in the middle of it, in spite of it. And you will be working on that tension, because in those stressful situations, the tension that we carry all the time just gets magnified. And so we have a chance to work on it. And if you use those stressful situations to work on it, now you've lowered the bar, or you've raised the bar, however you want to think about it. And your ability to relax in a pleasant situation has also grown and expanded, because you've practiced relaxing in a stressful situation. Now, when you get into a pleasant situation, you find that your relaxation can go even deeper. So it's a skill, and it's a practice. It's an art, and it's very simple.
It's very delicious.
And the other, yeah, it is. And we have this beautiful miracle thing called consciousness. And when you combine that with breathing, when you breathe in, imagine the most delicious fragrance, and put yourself in the experience as you're breathing in, taking in the most beautiful, your favorite fragrance, your favorite scent, and actually feel how you would feel if you were enjoying it. And then give yourself a sigh of relief. So now we're bringing consciousness, or maybe some beautiful word, a beautiful image, together with the breathing. And now it's even more powerful. What are the most beautiful words anyone could speak to you? Breathe those words. What are the most beautiful words that you could speak to anyone else? Speak those words to yourself while you breathe, and take in the pleasure of them, take in the nurturing of them, and let your body feel it. Breathe into every cell of your body. Breathe a positive thought, a positive image into every cell of your body. Infuse every cell of your body with breath, and then relax. And combine consciousness in breathing, combine relaxation in breathing, and combine energy in breathing. You know, get up and jump up and down, dance until you're so exhausted, you collapse on the floor. You can't even stand up anymore. You're so exhausted. Feel your heart beating, and breathe into that aliveness in your body. And you'll touch something. Everyone will touch something beautiful. They just need to do it.
So beautiful. I mean, I'm kind of sitting here feeling myself melting just through that guidance into the breathing, and slowly becoming more of a cat and less of a human that can actually use words. But I will, I will roll along. And to to share with us, can you share with us some stories about what has happened with people when they've really opened to the breath? Any inspirational stories that come to you?
You know, healing and growth occurs on all levels: physical, emotional, psychological. I just got a really great message from somebody, said, wow, just remembering to breathe during a difficult argument or conversation totally changed the energy of the situation. And she was able to embrace and accept and listen. And the other person was transformed. The other person got over their anger, and nothing had to be processed. It was just required one person just letting go, relaxing, and breathing. And it's like a little miracle, because normally that would just repeat a pattern. Well, you said this. Well, I said that. Well, you should know this. And I said, and nobody's listening anymore, just waiting for the other person to shut up so that you can tell them what they should be thinking. And so it doesn't go anywhere. And so I consider that a miracle, when it's like an ordinary everyday thing, but it's beautiful. And once you experience it in one situation like that, you start to find that you can experience it everywhere. I just had a rental car drama, where I felt like a bait and switch. I rented this car online. I show up at the airport and they tell me it's going to be twice as much as what I said, is what they agreed. What the heck? So while the guy's telling me this and he's reading, we can't release the car, I just take a long inhale and a big sigh of relief. And he's like expecting me to I don't know what he's expecting me to do, but he wasn't expecting me to do that. And he said, well, what if I call the manager? That's a good idea. Let's call the manager. And he thought of it. So they call the manager up, and the guy put his phone on speaker, and I guess the manager didn't know this. He goes, hey, I'm at home. Tell the guy I'm busy. And he hung up. I said, what? And he just looked at me like with these big eyes like, oh, my God, that's embarrassing, I said, wow, does he have a boss? He goes, yeah, it's like the district manager. So why don't we call the district manager? So he calls up the district manager standing at the counter. This is the 6th SIXT rental place in Logan Airport. And so he calls up the district manager, and the district manager, he says, hey, this is so-and-so from the thing. The guy just hung up. He didn't even say anything. So I said, wow, this is how you treat your customers here? He goes, I don't know what to tell you. I said, well, who's the owner? He says, well, the owner is JP's in Florida. Why don't we call the owner? He calls up the owner. So he says, hey, there's a guy on the phone here. I said, let me talk to him. So I got on the phone with the owner. I said, hey, we just talked to your manager, and he said he was too busy to help solve this problem. Then we called your district manager, and he literally hung up on your guy. Now, what are you going to do about this problem? And he says, well, what is the problem? So I explained it. He says, well, put the guy back on. He said, just waive that extra thing. And I walked out of there just like that. So in another time, in another place, I would have been being this irate customer, swearing and banging at the counter. It would have gotten me nowhere. And so that's a miracle, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Just that connecting to the breath in the middle of a situation where otherwise the mind would have just taken over and
and something else is possible. Yeah, something from beyond becomes possible. We have a beautiful, you might know her, Julia Dimodova, who's one of my miracle girls. Well, she's a grown woman in her 30s now, but when I met her, she was 13 or 14 years old, and doctors said, there's no way that you're going to, she just had no hope. Doctors had no hope for her. And she lifted herself up through breathing and through consciousness. And she's I call her one of my miracle people. And I did a thing in Silicon Valley with the Nissan Renault group in their labs, and we're doing this onboard breathing. And the thing is, hey, instead of pulling over and getting a cup of coffee and getting all jacked up to stay awake on the road, why don't you learn a couple of breathing exercises that wake you up? Or if you get stressed in road traffic and, there's a threat, how about learning a couple of breathing exercises to relax so you're not the next case of road rage that we read about? And so the Nissan car group is really excited about this idea of, integrating breathing training and even a breathing seat into their future car models. And so it was kind of a unique and different thing. And so it got some press, and we were beat up by some reporter, a French magazine, calling pseudoscience and blah, 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 breathing, and, you know, just making fun of the whole thing. And it was a tech magazine. But they also attacked poor Julia, who's on my website, and they put up this, you know, this testimonial from some supposed person who experienced this wonderful blah, blah, blah. And so I asked Julia, well, you know, write a letter to these guys, say, look, I'm a real person, and this really helped me. How, you know, I don't know what your case is, but this really helped me. And she's one of the examples. I mean, it took a lot. She came to seminar. At the seminar, she suffered through breathing sessions. I felt so bad for her. She would get locked up into tetany, and they were putting chairs on the tables. We had to leave the room. They wanted to lock the building, and she was still in her session. We had to carry her out. And this went on session after session. And then one day, out of nowhere, she just broke through, and she healed herself. And 15 years later, she's living in Japan. She's learned to speak Hindi. She's an interpreter in Japanese and English and Russian, and she's living this magnificent life. And she wasn't even supposed to be alive. How's that for an inspirational story? So
beautiful.
And she did it. She did it. You know, it wasn't. She just kept breathing. She learned to relax. She spoke to herself in positive, uplifting ways, and she cracked her own case. And that's what we all have to do, you know. Each of us has to find our own way. But given the tools of consciousness and a heart and emotional intelligence and heart intelligence and the breath, we can accomplish some really beautiful and amazing things. We're powerful beings of light, and we need to prove it to ourselves in any way that we can.
Beautiful. I know that you speak also about that this conscious relationship with the breath can actually lift up our state of emotional and energetic attunement. Do you find that? Can you say more about that? How a conscious relationship with the breath actually increases our emotional and energetic attunement?
Yeah, everything is energy. You know, everything is energy. And as soon as we begin to develop an energetic rapport with a situation, we come into harmony, we resonate, and things start to fall into order. I just left a really brilliant guy, investment banker, Oren Klaff. Brilliant. His book is called Pitch Anything. And he raises, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars, big finance things. He's got 20 minutes in a room with strangers to get them to release, you know, 20, 50, $100 million. You know, how do you do that in 20 minutes? He's just a brilliant presenter and so on. And, you know, he gets, you know, he goes, you know, once I'm psyched, all the energy is flowing and stuff. And it could be anxiety kind of energy. And he can't attack it with slow breathing and meditation. It's almost like a clash. And so together we said, well, listen, here's what you do. If you're already all psyched up and agitated and everything is zinging, you're in that high chaotic kind of state, come up to speed with the breathing. So what we do is you breathe really fast and really hard. And so now you're breathing in a way that's actually matching what's happening emotionally. Then you begin to slow the breathing down, and you take your emotions and your mental state with it. I gave him the analogy of, you know, in America, we have this classic scene in the Western movies where a stagecoach, the horses get spooked and the driver falls off the stagecoach and the horses are running away with the stagecoach, and somebody rides up alongside on their horse. They jump off the horse. They jump onto the stagecoach, which is out of control. and then they bring the stagecoach to a safe stop. So that's a good metaphor. We bring our breathing energy up to match our anger or our fear, and now we got a handle on it. And as we control our breathing, the emotion comes with it. So And that was a great insight for me, even because, hey, if you're all upset, slow down, breathe slow, take it easy. That's easy to say, like to a drowning person, hey, relax, relax, relax. It's impossible. So we use the breath to match the energy. And then once they're in harmony, now by controlling the breath, we control the emotion. It's actually pretty easy to do.
Fantastic. Well, I think it's pretty apparent probably to all the listeners that Dan is really like such a diverse master of the breath, and not only of the science of it, but also constantly, as you can hear, finding new ways of meeting real life situations with ways that the breath can take us deeper. So, Dan, if you can just give the listeners your website so that they know where to go and find out more about you. And then I believe you also have a free gift to offer them.
I do. The website is breathmastery.com, breathmastery.com. And if you go there, you'll see right at the top is my free book, Shut Up and Breathe. And it covers lots of things, no matter what role or job you have in life or what you got. You'll find a chapter in there that suits you. You just mentioned the science. It's the only thing I do have a little bit about the science of the breath in that book, but not a lot. I've been focusing on it more recently. And so I just want to mention this thing about the vagus nerve. It's like, get me so excited because Ela Manga, who I think you know, Dr. Mangan's in Johannesburg. She's like the leading breath worker in South Africa now. She sent me a YouTube clip, a video clip of a dissected vagus nerve. And this thing is like 2 feet long. It looks like an alien creature laying on this examining table. It's the biggest nerve in the body. And only recently did scientists realize that 80% of the traffic, of the information, of the signals passing through the vagus nerve are from the body up to the brain. Until recently, scientists just assumed that the brain was using this giant vagus nerve to send information and control everything in the body. But only 20% of the signals travel from the brain to the body. 80% of the information is coming from the body up to the brain. And every time we breathe, we activate the vagus nerve and we send information up to the brain. This is how we can hack into our autonomic nervous system. This is how we can hack into our brain, into our immune system by breathing give the breathing a certain quality that sends a certain message to the brain. And the brain has no choice but to produce chemicals and cause changes that are in response to that information. That's why the sigh of relief is so important, because you're sending this very powerful piece of information up to the brain. And it's a great way for us to get a handle on things that we might feel that usually we're a victim of. But now science is showing us, no, this explains why when we breathe in certain ways, we control our emotions, we control our physiology, we control our mental state, because we're sending information up to the brain via the vagus nerve by just breathing.
That's so fantastic to contemplate, because I know the vagus nerve is such a key pathway for, our general state of what we feel like. And so what you're saying here is that it's actually through the breathing that the change that can bring in the body can then also alter the state of mind along that vagus nerve pathway.
Yeah, perfectly. That's a movement. You combine breathing with movement, and now the vagus nerve is sending even more beautiful information up to the brain. So, and sound, and moving and stretching while breathing. That sounds like yoga, doesn't it? No wonder it's No wonder it's so popular for so long, you know. Yeah. But it's exciting to me now because, you know, science is being able to now explain. And for some people, that's so important, you know, that, okay, now my mind understands. And so now I'm willing to practice. And, you know, while the rest of us say, hey, look, I don't understand. I just trust my intuition. I'm just going to do it. That's scary for some people because they need logical, rational proof before they're willing to do something. And thank God now with all this research around breathing that people are actually starting to do it and practice it. And when you practice it, you get results. You cannot not get results if you actually do the work. And maybe there's the problem, Shakti. We have to do the work. No one can fix us. No one can do it for us. We need to do the work. But when you get the tools and you have the support, it's amazing how much work you can get done.
Absolutely, yeah. And so just to remind the listeners, Dan's website is breathmastery.com, right?
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Because I know that there's a lot of resources on there. So if you are inspired by what Dan shared here and you'd love to deepen in this, even if you don't get to meet Dan in person, although he is one intrepid flyer of the globe.
I'll end up in your city one of these days.
I wouldn't be surprised if he's flying to Mars one of these days. But apart from, you know, just finding him in person, he also has various resources that you can just pull off his website. So go and have a look. And Dan, thank you so much for sharing with us so richly your wisdom and also just the state of being that you occupy in your body. It's very palpable and just such a beautiful sense of being able to really fall in love with ourselves through the breath. Thank you for offering us so generously some insights and pathways for how to go there.
Wow. Thank you, love. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to spend this time with you. Yeah. Okay, well, sending everyone a big breath of love.
Thank you, Dan.